Hi everyone, I am Donna Reed and this is Donna Reed Talks Voice. Today I'm working with Emma. Hi Emma,
Hi, it's nice to be here.
great to have you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to do it.
So can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself? What's your musical background? What do you like to sing? What kind of things do you sing?
I'm currently a junior musical theater major at Oklahoma City University. I sing a lot of more musical theater side stuff. I've done a little bit of classical, but not a ton, but mostly musical theater stuff. And I've done that for a while. And so that's normally what I do a lot. But right now I have a sinus infection, and so some things aren't quite there today, and that's okay because you gotta learn.
Exactly. And I knew that at the beginning of this lesson, I knew that coming in that Emma has the sinus infection, and we were debating, well, should she do the lesson anyway or not? So I said, no, let's do the lesson because I'll show you if you have to go on and you're not so sick that you're in bed and you can't move and you have to go on.
Right.
What do we do with a sinus infection? The how do we work around that? Now, the very, very first thing I'm going to tell you is that everybody is so used to feeling their voices where they think they should be. One thing, initially, the way I teach is don't worry about placement because it's different every day. It's an oo vowel doesn't feel like an ah vowel, doesn't feel like an a vowel. Even added consonant, it feels different. That's one discussion. But the second discussion is if with something like a sinus infection, you try to make it feel the way you're used to having it feel, I'll tell you right now, you're just going to mess everything up because it's not going to feel the same. You have a sinus infection. So that's why feelings are elusive. And you wake up one day, you don't have a sinus infection, but I don't know, it's the barometric pressure is down. You're going to feel it differently than if the barometric pressure is up. So, in other words, you kind of get a sense of what you're doing kinesthetically, of course, but we don't worry about feelings right now. So, one, you're not going to worry about that. Two, right now, especially just warming up, don't worry about the aesthetics of it. Don't worry about it what it sounds like. You have a sinus infection. Who knows what it's going to sound like?
Right.
We're just going to work our way through it. Now, I don't know you. This is the first time I'm meeting Emma. I don't know you, and I don't even know your voice. So I'm hearing your voice in a compromised state. But still, whatever state it's in now, we'll do the best we can to get it a little bit freer and easier. So, first thing I'm going to have you do is exhale all of your air. Inhale as you bring your arms up, and then exhale, and do that 3, 4 times. Now, fortunately, you haven't said that you have any kind of a cough or anything. It's not in your lungs. It's just sinus thing. If it were in your lungs and you were doing this, it might promote a cough. You might start to cough. If you're coughing and a cold or whatever you have settles in your lungs, do it one more time. Um, then it's better just not to sing. Because when it's affecting the lungs, then you're going to cough. It's going to be compromised. That's kind of hard to sing on.
Yeah.
But if it's just a sinus thing, or even sometimes a sore throat, you could sometimes sing around that, even though it feels bad. Again, it all depends on the circumstances. It all depends on where everybody's at the moment. But let's see where you're at.
Okay.
We're going to take those 3 notes. You're going to do it on an oo. Don't
Okay.
even worry about how you're doing it. Just
Yeah.
sing oo. Now, right off the bat, the first thing that I can tell is that even though you have the sinus infection, I don't hear that your cords are swollen because you were able to do those ooh there. All right, there's a plus. If I heard that your cords were swollen, I'd say, okay, they're swollen. We can't do anything with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, even under those circumstances, sometimes you can get it working. But so far, so good. Good. far so good. Those are easy enough, right?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Um, let's take that ooh all the way down.
Okay.
Wait a second, let me think. Yeah, let's do that. You do the whole octave. Now,
Okay.
on the bottom note, it may be weak, it may stay in a head voice, it may switch to a chest voice. Don't force anything, don't
Okay.
prevent anything from happening. Let it go wherever it seems to want to go.
Okay. Ooh. 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 Ooh.
Good. Now, those bottom notes, do they seem rather heady to you? Do they kind of seem mixy? Do they seem chesty?
They feel pretty like on the spectrum of like a chest to a head. It feels probably like a 7. I think it's because right now, like with my sinus infection, with like I feel so much right here that it's pretty tangible, and so I'm pretty like fearful of getting too much on my voice because of everything going on. So I think my tendency is to stay a bit more heady right now.
Okay, that seems a logical explanation. However, the reason it was heady is because I had you sing an ooh, and I had you take an ooh all the way down, and I
Yeah.
had you do it not too loudly.
Mm.
That's kind of why it's heady.
Yeah.
See, so the when you sing ooh vowels or the rounder vowels, it's going to stay on the head voice side,
Yeah.
thin the vocal cords. And when you bring the ooh down there in the chest voice territory, and you don't go louder with it, then it's going to stay rather heady
Okay.
or kind of mixy. There was a little bit of chest voice in there. So that's why I don't think that what happened there had really much to do with your sinus infection at all. So just making that distinction as to what you think may be because of the sinus infection or just because I do things differently and it might go somewhere else. But now, speaking of that, let's go to the chest voice. Now, you know what? I'm going to have you do this. Just one note at a time. On and
Okay.
off, in the chest voice, see what happens.
Okay. Uh,
Exactly.
uh, 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 uh,
Good.
uh.
Don't jump the gun. Now, those seem very easy and nothing sounds like it's shutting down, and that's obviously a chest voice, right? Beautiful. So we've got the head voice going, we've got the chest voice going. Both of them seem to be just fine. Now, because of the sinus infection, do those chest voice guys also feel a little weird?
A little bit. I do like just strangely do feel it more in my chest. Like I feel like something right here, just a bit more. I don't know what that is.
Okay, so when you do a chest voice, you don't normally feel that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, interesting. Now, what may be happening is because you have the sinus infection. Let me back up a little bit. So when I heard the oohs here, even just that, I heard that it was your approach to singing is a little aggressive.
Mm.
So, but because of the sinus infection, and especially because of low, it sounds like maybe you're backing off a little bit.
Mm.
Now, the good thing about that is what you just described. Now, those chest voice sounds didn't sound like they were shutting down, and you actually felt them in your chest. Not that that's where everybody needs to feel them, but that's why they named it a chest voice back in 16, whatever it was. So what you're doing is you're kind of not pushing on those bottom notes, and they're coming out very easily. Now that's something to remember. We went as low as the F sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to remember when you're that low in the chest voice, not to push too hard. And you'll actually get a more resonant kind of chesty sound.
Mm.
That being said, that, however, is not quite the chest voice that you're going to sing for musical theater. Because
Right.
if you sing that chest voice for musical theater and then try to bring it up, it's almost a little too heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that in a moment. Now, just do plain old da, going up wherever it wants to go, and then back down.
Okay. Ah.
Now, what do you notice with those? How do they sound and feel compared to what they normally sound and feel like?
Um, I think I'm noticing a bit more of like a shift between the chest and the head voice. I have been like thinking a lot this semester about blending those shifts, and so I
Uh-huh.
think right now I'm just noticing the shift a bit more.
Okay. So did you think that that the way you did it there needed to be blended in a better way?
Um, I think that that time I was just kind of taking it in. Now that I'm thinking about if it needed to be blended more, maybe a little bit, um, just so that it didn't sound like different voices, but like a flipping a coin or something. You know what I mean?
Okay, now that's very interesting that you say that because there is one thing I want to take care of with that, what we heard, but I'm going to address that in a moment. But in terms of the shift and the blending bottom to the top, it was perfectly smooth.
Okay,
Now,
that's
that's really, well, I'm saying this, it's really important because if you're singing and you're practicing, you think that that's not smooth and you want to fix it and make it more blended, you're trying to fix something that's not broken. So
okay.
in other words, when we feel a shift on the inside, that's a real good thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're hearing it on the outside. So I understand the idea of wanting a smooth scale. Everybody does, and of course you want that. However, what we do to get a smooth scale is we take away the idea that something has to shift, something has to move, and then in trying to make a smooth scale, we either take the head voice too far down or take the chest voice too far up without allowing the mixes. So remember, if you have a really smooth scale, every single note's probably going to feel a little different, as it should. So if you listen very, very closely, who's one of your favorite performers?
I really enjoy Jessie Mueller quite a bit. I think she's really good.
Absolutely, agreed. And I've seen her on Broadway. She's amazing. But if you listen to her very closely, in fact, I just re-listened to her singing She Used to Be Mine because I actually have several students right now who are working on that piece. I said, you know what? I haven't heard her in a long time. I'm going to go listen to see what she does with it. If you listen very closely to her, she's switching all over the place.
Yeah.
She's not just singing in one voice. And
Mhm.
I always say to my students who want this smooth scale, they want this one voice, I say, well, why can Jessie Mueller do that and everybody loves it, but you're not allowed to do that?
Mhm.
So be very careful about the quote unquote smooth scale. Now, you want the aesthetics that you want. I totally agree with that. But be careful about the trying to get it too connected. Let's put it that way. Now, that being said, I'll tell you what I didn't like about these guys that we're going to fix right now. They were a little on the breathy side.
Okay.
Now, I think that they were on the breathy side. No, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to have you do something and just, I'm going to have you do it again. So, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you sing the same thing, the same and I just want you to move around. So
Okay.
you can move around like that. Make sure that the shoulders are moving. Make sure the rib cage is moving, especially in the abdominal area. It's twisting and moving and all of that. So say ma.
Ah, ah, ah.
Now, did you notice that those were better than the time before?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you why. So when something is breathy, when the sound is breathy, there is something that's pushing the air so hard, you're pushing the vocal cords apart.
Yeah.
So usually it's in the abdominal area, just below the sternum, just in that, people are taught that support thing. People are taught, oh, you got to push the air out. And literally, most of the times, what that does is it pushes the cords apart. No, I take that back. Sometimes people push that area so hard, they cut off the air altogether and it goes under the pitch.
Mhm.
So you can either cut off the air with that or push the air too hard. Now, by having you move and have the rib cage move, you couldn't push. The air is
Right.
just like, all right, fine, you don't need to push me out. If you think of the analogy of a balloon, you blow up a balloon and it blows up, and then you have the little neck of the balloon, right? If you open it up and, make those little squeaky noises, The air wants to escape. You don't have to take that balloon and push the air out.
Mhm.
When we sing, we want to push the air out of the balloon, and we don't need to. All you have to do is have enough air in your lungs, phonate, which means the cords will be apart a little bit, and the air will come out.
Mhm.
That was brilliant. Now, one. Two, that was even a quote unquote smoother scale than you had before.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you weren't pushing the air so hard.
right.
There you go. Now, let me ask you this. What kind of repertoire do you sing? Do you sing more belty stuff or do you sing more legit?
I sing probably more on the belty side of my repertoire. I have like a couple of headpieces that are just like for my fun golden age time where like you audition for those things.
Of course.
But mostly I do belt. And so that I have like a track and stuff to a song if we wanted to move to that at some point.
Okay, fine. Now, is there anything that is a little bit difficult with that? Do you have a problem with the higher belt? Does it seem to just want to mix and it's easy, or is there a particular pitch range that is compromised?
So on a normal day, I can comfortably belt like a E flat F. Um,
Okay.
sometimes a G if we're doing like a little like run or whatever. But I whenever I've tried to belt the past day or morning, um, things get lost up there. Like it cracks, it just cuts off, and so today that's my issue is just not being able to reach the notes.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's get right to it.
Sure.
So what I'm going to have you do, I'm going to have you do those three notes with a K and an A, K, A, A. It's bright, it's obnoxious.
Okay.
I'm giving you the K because the energy is way back there where the K is.
Yeah.
So it may feel forward, it may not feel forward. People who sing well feel it forward.
Yeah.
People who sing horribly feel it forward.
Okay.
That's elusive.
Yeah.
But the shape of the cavity and the energy in the back of the throat is what you're looking for. So
Okay.
it's a ka, bright, obnoxious, ugly, ugly. But what I'm going to have you do is move at the same time.
Okay.
Now you don't need to take in a lot of air,
Yeah.
but take in enough air and let it go fast. Really bright, obnoxious, and move. Make sure you're moving.
We're starting up there.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be belty. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be
Okay.
chest voice. It just has to be bright
Okay.
and obnoxious. Let it
Okay.
feel heady, let it feel chesty, whatever is easy peasy peasy, as long as it's bright, straight, obnoxious, and
Okay.
you're moving.
Okay.
Good. And as we go down with it, let it change. Let it
Okay.
do whatever it wants to do. Just keep it bright, straight, obnoxious. Good. And a little faster. Yep. Good. Now, the bottom notes on these last several, do they still feel rather on that heady side?
They do. They feel like they did before. Whenever you wanted me to be more less breathy, less
Okay.
airy.
Now, can you do this again?
Yeah.
Let's do it from the octave. And again, start it on that heady side,
Okay.
but let it go into some kind of a chest voice.
Sure. Okay.
And again, moving, 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 make sure that those abs don't get tight. And again, for this one, take plenty of air, even if it's too much air for the exercise. You may not
Okay.
use it all. But bright, bright, bright. Let it be
Okay.
ugly. We're not looking for aesthetics. It's just
Yeah.
bright. And it may switch from some kind of a head voice to some kind of a chest voice. Feel the switch, and it might do a big break. Let it do a big break. Doesn't matter. Good. You hear what it went into?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Now let it switch back and then let it go into that. Great. Now that top note, does that still feel on that heady side?
No, that one felt very not
A
not
little
on the
bit
breath.
more mixy, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, You notice that when you went down, starting here, the top note for each one was slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
It started out kind of heady, then it was a little bit more chesty, a little bit more chesty. I was going to say this one sounds chesty, but I've had students who have the top note sound very chesty and say, oh, but that feels heady.
Okay.
Everybody's different. And that's where the problem comes in, especially with belting. They'll
Right.
feel it like a head voice and they'll say, but that's not belting. It feels like a head voice. But we don't hear that out here. We hear a belt.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to take it the opposite way. So ca, again, you don't even worry about chest voice, head voice. It's
Yeah.
just loud, obnoxious, straight, and you make sure you're moving so that we don't get any tightening to force those notes out there, okay? So ca, hold it just a tad and right back down.
Ca.
Exactly. And then you just hear the sound and you get a sense of, oh, it kind of feels like this. Nothing specific where it's placed, but just kind of what it's doing. Yeah, and the only pre-warning I'm going to give you is as you go higher, it needs more energy, but that doesn't mean more push of air.
Yeah.
That just means something in your body that gives it energy.
Okay. Ca.
Exactly.
Ca.
That's it. And again, move around, take plenty of air to begin with. Make sure the air is way up here. The air is an expansive rib cage.
Okay.
Exactly. And let it do whatever. Exactly. Good, 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 good. Great. Let it do something weird. Let it go somewhere weird. Let it sound weird. Let it do whatever. Breath, and watch that in-breath so the in-breath isn't tight because you're anticipating, oh my God, it's higher. Can I do it?
Right. Right. I didn't expect it to do that time, but it did. It kind of flipped.
Well, yeah, did you notice that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you did is you pulled back a little bit on the energy.
Yeah.
And then it shifted there and it shifted up. Now, there is nothing wrong with that shift if in a piece of music you need that shift.
Right.
Right now, we don't want that shift.
Right.
So, especially this one. This one's low. You already sung this one belty, I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
So you just have to, and the reason you pulled back and it shifted to more head voice is that fear of, I don't think I can bring this sound up that high.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You might not be able to, but just go for it. Let it be weird. Let it go. Let it be the wrong thing. Let it be scratchy. Let it be strange. You just take that big, expansive breath, move, and just go for it. Just be big. Go for it. Let it be the wrong thing. If you do the wrong thing once, it doesn't hurt. Now, that still switched, but that was a different switch.
It was a different switch.
Yeah, and you kept the chest voice going up there. Now we hear out here, we heard a switch, but I'm going to cover up that switch for you. Now you're going to do cat, 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 cat. Put a K in front of each one.
Okay.
And but approach it the same way. Don't know where it's going to go because you've already felt the switch. But try not to preconceive, oh, that's what it's going to do. It may not do that this time. But be real aggressive with it. Big, expansive breath, move around, cat, 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 cat. Big, 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 big.
Cat, 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 cat.
Now, was that different than the one before?
It was. It felt like it wasn't a continuous thing, but they were a bit more separated. If that's what
because of the k.
Yeah.
But did it sound like a smooth scale to you?
Internally, it felt more smooth than the last time, I would say.
Yes, it certainly was, and it was a little bit more connected. Now, what I heard was there was definitely more chest voice on that top note.
Okay.
Now, it may have felt heady,
Mhm.
but it sounded chestier than the one
Okay.
before. So it may feel very similar,
Mhm.
but it sounded chestier and it sounded much more like the bottom three.
Okay.
So it sounded all belty, and that's an E natural.
Okay. Yeah.
So do you see how even though with the sinus infection earlier on or whenever you tried it, you said, oh, I just can't get those notes. We just got them for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. One of the reasons why is especially when our voices are compromised, when we're sick and it feels weird and our bodies feel weird and you could feel a little under the weather in terms of your body energy, all of that.
Yeah.
What happens is that even if you're not consciously doing it, you're pushing harder because
Mhm.
that's what we do. Something's not working. I'm just going to push harder. Believe
Mhm.
me, been there, done that. But what I did is by having you move around, I
Mhm.
made it so that you couldn't push harder.
Mhm.
And in not pushing harder, we actually got there. So the
Mhm.
pushing harder actually made it more difficult to get there.
Yeah.
And yes, when you have a sinus infection, it may take you longer to warm up. It may take your voice longer to respond, but the answer is not working harder or pushing. And it's not probably not even conscious on your part. It's
Mhm.
like, I just want to make it work. And then
Yeah.
we can't help it. Then because we want to make it work and our bodies do this, then something gets tight, the rib cage gets tight, something does that to it. But
Mhm.
now you let me see, let's look at in this because you sent the music hopelessly devoted, right?
Mhm.
Now what is the part that's most challenging?
I think it's the end.
Okay.
Would be the most challenging.
Okay, hold on a sec. So here's your pitch, and it's right at the key change.
But now there's nowhere to hide since you pushed my love aside. I'm out of my head, hopelessly devoted to you. Hopelessly devoted to you.
Yeah, how'd that feel?
Okay, it felt fine. I think there were times where, for the most part, I didn't feel it in here at all. But there was a couple times where I did, to where I was like, oh, that's not right. That's not where I need to be feeling it. And so, for the most part, it felt very good. And there were just a couple times where I was like, oh no, yeah,
Okay, now I'm glad you were moving around. That's brilliant on your part. The only thing you have to do, the balances are great. The
okay,
chest voice head voice ratio is really good. It's doing that beautifully. You just have to watch your air. Now,
okay.
you've got but now, and it stops. There's nowhere to hide, right?
Mhm.
Now, when you did the but now, did you take a breath? I don't remember. Did you take a breath or did you just stop and then keep singing?
I didn't take a breath. I took a breath after now, and
Right.
I have a habit of
So,
taking too many breaths.
no, not at all. You take
Okay,
whatever breaths you need,
okay,
totally. But the breath has to lead you to the next phrase.
yeah.
Now, I think right from the beginning might have thrown you off a little bit. Again, I'm not quite remembering what just happened. I'm looking at the music and I should have been looking more at you. But don't even take a breath for but now.
Yeah.
Then you take the breath for there's no place to hide.
Okay.
Because what happens when we have those little breaths, and there's a little bit of a musical interlude there, right? You've got a measure where you don't have to sing. Our tendency, especially because of what you're saying, the line before, would be to want to take a big breath.
Yeah.
So if you take a big breath, you have all that excess air in your lungs that hasn't gotten out,
Yeah.
so that you can't then take the breath for there's no place to hide.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So barely breathe for but now.
Okay.
Then breathe rhythmically, however much air you think you need for there's nowhere to hide since you push my love aside.
Okay.
And then watch your breath again for I'm out of my head.
Mhm.
If you're going to take another breath after that, you don't need a big breath for that one.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, in other words, maybe gauge that you don't take too much air depending on the phrase.
Okay.
So, don't worry about where you're putting it, how that's going, that's working very well.
Okay.
Just really focus on where am I taking those breaths, and do those breaths correspond with the phrase?
Okay.
So same place, try it again.
But now there's nowhere to hide since you pushed my love aside. I'm out of my head, hopelessly devoted. I flipped at a weird part. I didn't anticipate that.
Okay, now,
That was just fear.
okay, fair enough. Now, and I am going to address one little thing. Now, first of all, how did that feel with the air?
It felt better going a bit more smooth in the but now. I think like in the past I've heard it stylistically like separated. It's unnecessary, I think, for my performance. So I think that helps a lot, making me feel more connected to my breath rather than like fighting for air, but knowing that I have it.
Understandable, and if that made it easier technically, great. But then what you have to do is you have to come up with an acting reason why you did that.
Yeah.
So why did you have to do it this way? What's your acting reason? What's your motivation to do that? Why does she need to breathe that way?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to come up with it right this moment. But
Right.
if technically that works better for you, then you have to come up with, oh, well, the character needs to breathe that way and do that because of.
Yeah.
And then you don't think when you're singing it technically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one little habit that you have, and
Okay.
I don't know if it's a habit or if it's a stylistic choice,
Mm-hmm.
you tend to scoop into the top notes.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
there's no place it does those little scoops. Now,
Yeah.
if that's a stylistic choice, fine, wonderful. But the problem with that is when you scoop under the pitch that way, you're taking the thicker vocal cords up and it's harder to belt.
Okay.
You see, so then you're taking thicker set chords, da, and you're making them stay thick.
Yeah.
When what you really want to do is, even though it's all belty, remember, they're all in different places. It doesn't all feel the same.
Yeah.
So even just that little half step, that top guy's a little bit different than the bottom guy.
Yeah.
So try it again with that thought in mind, and remember the breath. I know it's a lot to think about.
Okay, let's do it. But now there's nowhere to hide since you pushed my love aside. I'm out of my head. Hope. There's a scoop. Hopelessly devoted to you. Hopelessly devoted to you.
Now, what did you, before I ask you how the whole thing felt, what did you notice with the breath before the last hopelessly devoted to you?
I noticed I almost inhaled it, and like, at least from my point of view, I felt like I exhaled it before I even sang. Did you see that, or does it just?
No, and did that feel better?
Yeah, I think it felt more of like a relaxed breath,
Exactly.
not like stacking my breath.
So even though you felt the exhale, which was the most brilliant thing to do because you have to get rid of the air before you have enough air to do the next phrase. So even though you felt that, we didn't notice that out here. And if you do have to do that, you could make that part of the acting choice.
Yeah.
You know, that exhale before you do the hopelessly.
Yeah.
It totally works.
Right.
Now, how did that one in general feel?
That one felt better. I think I just not thinking so much about like trying to eliminate some of the scoops. I think helped me become more aware of how they were placed differently, and it helped it be a bit more personal to the note rather than trying to bring up what another note has.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then again, everything that we did, you have to come up with an acting reason for it, especially those little breaths and that little exhale and all of that. Now, the next time you do it, you may not need that exhale. You may have just the right amount of breath for that. And then you just take, normally just take whatever breath you need. or you might do the exhale again. So once
Right.
you plan something out, and you know this as an actor, once you plan something out, then you're in the moment. Maybe I'm not going to take that breath. Maybe I'm going to take it differently, or maybe I'm going to do this, or maybe I'm going to do that. But once you plan it, you know where you're going with it, and you know the acting reason why you're doing that.
Yeah.
So that was good. Now, not bad for having a sinus infection.
Thank you.
See how you can get around it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
sounded really, really good. So,
Yeah.
a lot of things to think about, but, think about all these things. And then, as you're working, see what works for you
Yeah.
in all of these different suggestions I've given you. And if it works, then you do it. I always say that to all of my students. If they're studying with somebody and they say something very weird that I don't believe in or whatever, I always say, does it work? If it works for you, do it.
Mhm.
Does it work every time? Even better. If
Yeah.
it works sporadically, now there's something weird. It's like,
Mhm.
Now that's tricky. I'm glad I'm bringing up this point, because if it works sporadically, it could be that you just have to work on it a little bit and get it in your voice. But if it's a technique that works sporadically for, a long time, maybe it's something you shouldn't do. So that's tricky. One has to get like an internal sense of, is this thing working for me? Or after I try it a couple of times, do I just need to try it a few more? But you can't keep trying it forever thinking it's going to work if it doesn't work.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
It's just something to think about.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much. This was
Okay.
so much fun.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for watching Donna Reed Talks Voice. If you have any questions for me about this episode, or if you'd like to join me on a future episode, please visit donnareedtv.com and click Contact.